We've all experienced shame in our lives, and it really hurts. It feels terrible every time, and we do not like it. Shame steals our joy, it brings us down, and it can last a long, long time. But it wasn't always this way. Hi, I'm Megan, and in this video, I explore the reality of shame, how and why it affects women so much, and what we can do about it. I know this can be a difficult topic to talk about, but I want you to know you don't have to live a life of shame. There is healing for you, and there is a way through it. Just bear with me for a few minutes, and I think this will be worth the watch. And if not, well, I won't be ashamed. You see what I did there? A long time ago, in a galaxy far, far away, I was in high school, and I had the biggest crush on a boy named Chris. And one day it happened. During my junior year, while I was walking to my 1989 lifted blue Nissan truck, he and his friends drove by me while I was walking, and Chris just happened to lean out the window, smiled at me, and said, "Hi, Megan." I know, all the feels, right? He knew my name. He knew who I was. And then he proceeded to make a mooing sound. I went from being completely elated that he said hello to being absolutely mortified, and I could not get to my truck fast enough. Looking back, there is a big part of me that wishes I had been quicker on my feet in those days and that I had a comeback with a hurtful saying of asking him if he was learning his animal sounds in his lower level classes in high school. But that's not helpful. That would have shamed him, and that honestly would have been something that I would have been ashamed of doing in the future. But that's what shame does. It becomes this vicious cycle. I've had my share of shameful moments in life, as I'm sure you have too. Things that have been said and done to me, and things that I've done and said to others. There is this thread of shame that throughout much of my life I can find it. And this thread is something that leads me to believing lots of things about myself that aren't true. What would the world be like if there was no shame? Well, there was a period of time that shame did not exist, and it's mentioned in one line of the Bible describing the relationship between the man and the woman God created. So let's see what we can learn by looking at these verses. We meet the woman. We know her as Eve, but she actually does not have a name in this story yet, and we meet her in Genesis 2. God has created the entire universe, earth, atoms, ecosystems, animals, plants, and he has created man. The woman was created with the specific purpose of standing beside Adam and being his helper. The word helper does not imply she was inferior. In fact, the same Hebrew word used to describe the woman is only used elsewhere to describe God himself in his relationship to Israel. And as I recently learned from a conversation in the comments section, this word, helper, actually can be translated more accurately as an ally. Women are not meant to be ahead of men or behind them, but we are designed to stand as an equal at their side. So the woman as the helper represents the nurturing, the loving, the comforting, encouraging, and the mothering aspects of who God is. So now that we know a little bit about her, let's see what happened after her creation. Genesis 2 verses 22 through 25. And the Lord God fashioned into a woman the rib which he had taken from the man, and brought her to the man. Then the man said, "At last, this is bone of my bones and flesh of my flesh. She shall be called woman, because she was taken out of man. For this reason, a man shall leave his father and his mother, and be joined to his wife, and they shall become one flesh. And the man and his wife were both naked, but they were not ashamed." So here we have the man and the woman, and they are united, and the first marriage ceremony takes place. And it is literally perfect. Can you imagine the simplicity of their ceremony? God brings them together and he blesses them. There isn't a beautiful dress. There aren't flashes from cameras or the huge crowds coming around. There aren't the worries about how many people can come or who is sitting at each table or what are we going to serve for dinner. It's the simplest, and I personally find so much beauty in that. Now, I'm not saying that wedding ceremonies today are bad or wrong. I loved my wedding, and it had many of those things. I just personally find that their union and the simplicity of it is really beautiful and wonderful. But what I really, really stand in awe of is the intimacy they were able to experience. Now, I'm not just talking about the physical intimacy of their union, which I'm confident was really amazing as well. But the intimacy and the dynamic of their relationship, that they were fully exposed and known by each other, and they felt no shame. My mind can't even comprehend that. I know my husband loves me fully and truly, just as I am. But I really struggle in my relationship with my husband. Even after 15 years of marriage, which we just celebrated, I still struggle to share my innermost thoughts. I struggle to share my body and my emotions with him. I struggle to be myself and to laugh or joke. Thankfully, as we have lived life and gone through the valleys and the hilltops that marriage and life can bring, I am definitely much more free to share with him now than I was in the beginning of our relationship. But even knowing that he has loved me truly and he's accepted me just as I am, and he has stuck with me for 15 years and all of my flaws, all of my issues, I still struggle. I personally believe that the worst part of the brokenness this world experienced from the fall was this aspect of shame. The word for ashamed that's used in Genesis 2:25 is boosh. Say it with me, boosh. And what this word actually implies is terror. So this isn't like being ashamed, like, oh, I'm blushing, but this is terror that causes you to become pale, like the colors draining out of your face. And when scripture mentions this word throughout the rest of the Bible, not so great things are happening or are being discussed or prophesied. In our modern day American world, shame is described as a deep belief that I am wrong, meaning that there is something about me that is broken, flawed, that I cannot fix it. It can lead me to focus on all of the bad stuff that happens in life, whether it's because of my own choices or not, and that tends to reiterate or reinforce this belief. Usually the starting point for shame is a painful feeling of humiliation or distress, a feeling of unease or embarrassment, and a state of degrading or being degraded by somebody else. When Chris commented on my weight and my size way back when I was in high school, what it did is it reiterated a belief that I had that I am not worthy to be loved because I am not a certain size and I am not a petite person. And it reiterated this belief that my only value as a woman is in my physical appearance and in my body. Now, those beliefs didn't start with him, but this one action that he engaged in reinforced them. And that memory and those beliefs have stuck with me like Velcro to this very day. We don't live in a world where shame doesn't exist. But that wasn't how the woman was created. And that's not how marriage and the relationship with her husband was created. It was described as good, and that the man and the woman felt no shame. So if they felt no shame, What the heck did they feel and experience? What does that even look like? Well, the things that are opposite of shame are things like honor, respect, peace, loyalty, dignity, pleasure, kindness, admiration, confidence, faith, joy, trust, and love. Wouldn't it be wonderful to live in a world with this being the reality of all of our relationships and all of the things that we experience? Is there a way that we could even possibly make that happen? Well, I have good news and I have bad news. No, we can't go back to the Garden of Eden and live there. But the good news is that we can heal and we can move forward in not allowing the shame cycle to continue. If you've struggled with some of these areas, or let's be honest, all of them like I have, here are some things that may be helpful to recreating your life without shame. This can help you begin the healing process. And by the way, if this has been helpful to you at all, could you do me a favor and drop me a like? It's free and it will help others who might benefit from this information to be able to find it because, the algorithm. Number 1, challenge and reframe negative internal messages. That's the stuff that we have in our head. You cannot heal what you don't reveal. So you can start working on this by acknowledging the thoughts that pop into your head. Acknowledging these thoughts or acknowledging something does not mean that you agree with it. You're just acknowledging that it's there. And when that happens, number 2, you want to explore where that comes from. What areas of your life do you feel shame? Is it something that you did, or was it something that was done to you? And as you explore, you want to treat yourself with kindness and grace, and that will help you move towards healing. And in doing this, it's really helpful to seek out supportive relationships that can help you process and remind you of God's truth and reality of who you are. The creation of the woman is the crowning touch of God's creation. The woman is brought to the man, and all of creation is complete. And there is no shame. There is no shame in them, in their relationship with each other, in their relationship with God, in their bodies, in their sexuality, in their lives, in their homes, in their purpose. There is no shame, and it is good. Unfortunately, we can't go back to the world before the fall, but we can heal. God did not fashion you to be shamed for how and who you were created to be. The shame I've experienced in my life is the result of the brokenness in this world, which is not God's design, but humans doing. It's taken me a long time and is still a work in progress to embrace the reality of God's creation and design for women. But I've discovered it is so much more pure and beautiful than I could have ever imagined. So if you're struggling with your purpose as a woman and why it's so confusing today, I would love for you to check out my last video right here. It's an in-depth conversation about the creation of the first woman, and it will really encourage you in God's design for your life. It has been a joy to spend this time with you talking about the reality of shame and what we can actually do about it. So until next time, know that you are loved and that there is joy in the journey.